Hey everybody, Pastor Bo Wagner. How are you doing? I have got some news and a little bit of a gift for you, along with an apology. A few years ago, we started writing the series. I say we because my daughter joined me in part two, Zak Blue and the Great Space Chase. And we got two parts of it done. The first part, Falcon Wing, and the second part, Enter the Maelstrom. And then life sort of got in the way, and we got busier than I ever dreamed we could possibly get in a billion years. And these sort of ended up getting put on the back burner. But manuscript 3 is now finally done. And again, I apologize. I know it's taken a very long time for this, and I've actually had a lot of people at meetings sort of mildly chastise me for it because people get hooked on a series and they want to keep going with it. And it's my fault. Nobody else to blame except me. But the manuscript for part 3 is done, and because of that, I want to, like I said, give you a little bit of gift, if we can call it that. I want to read these online. I'm going to do some videos and read these a few chapters at a time and upload them. That way you're not having to buy new books for your old books that you may have misplaced to remember where you were, and you new readers are having an easy time, new listeners having an easy time getting caught up. So again, we'll start tonight on Zak Blue and the Great Space Chase, Falcon Wing, and then within about a month or so, hope to have part 3 in print because the manuscript is done, and that one is called The Lines of Life. So let's jump in, shall we? Zak Blue and the Great Space Chase, Falcon Wing, Chapter 1. To say that Zak Blue was a handful would be an understatement. He was self-centered, arrogant, egotistical, rebellious, dishonest, and impetuous. And it is that last quality, his impetuosity, that was causing him his current trouble. Bligana offre intaglia. Zak kept looking straight ahead, though he'd taken note of every whispered word he'd just heard. Yes, I know there are guards everywhere. It's almost like there's an escaped convict on the loose that they expect to try and steal one of their precious spaceships. He said those words with a sardonic chuckle, knowing that they were true and that he himself was the recently, albeit involuntarily, emancipated prisoner. Beside him, his best, perhaps it would be more accurate to say only, friend, Daragon, turned an inquisitive face toward him and then shook his round, scaly head back and forth at this latest example of Zak Blue's rashness. Oikana gyan bana lithasteria sunda? No, D. I couldn't have been patient 3 months. I was patient enough not to escape the day they brought me in. I was patient enough to wait 2 full weeks to check out of the very sparse confines of our local government's finest involuntary confinement. I think that's more than enough patience for one lifetime. 3 months? Out of the question, friend. Out of the question. Zak puffed a blonde curl out from in front of his left eye. He would have to get a haircut at some point. That head of wavy golden curls was as good as a neon sign to everyone looking for him. His picture would soon be floating across every suspended screen in half a dozen galaxies, along with a hefty posted reward just below his face. Daragon was right, of course. He may be a short, orange, scaly, cold-blooded, half-human, half-reptile, but his reasoning was unassailable. If Zak had just stayed put for a while, he would have been released, again, placed on probation, again, forced to undergo character reestablishment classes, yes, again, and then he would have been able to go about life as he was supposed to know it. But therein was the problem. Zak Blue was not interested in life as he was supposed to know it. He had an untamed spirit the size of the Milky Way and enough pent-up energy to power the Palindrome itself. He simply could not settle down into a monotonous, humdrum, societally efficient life. His parents, may they rest in peace, had known this by the time he was 3 years old when he dismantled the government-issued nutrition robot his family was assigned. He rebuilt it in such a way that it actually produced palatable food like pancakes and grilled cheese sandwiches instead of the bland, tasteless, yet highly nutritious veggie bars each human on Earth was now expected to consume. That brought Zak's first, but certainly not last, visit from the Planetary Efficiency Team, PET for short. His parents were mortified and promised that they would watch their little genius much more carefully to ensure that he did not demonstrate any more nonconformist behavior. That promise proved impossible to keep. Zak Blue had an IQ that put even interplanetary computerized organisms to shame, and no inner restraints to keep that intelligence in check. He built personal AirPods that were faster than inner atmosphere speed limits. He had the entire East Sector's trash sent to City Hall with a touch of a button. And then he sky-posted a picture of the mayor at home in his incredible Hulk pajamas. Getting the picture was easy enough. Every suspended screen is both a viewer and a two-way communication tool. Hacking into them and using them to snap pictures of people was supposed to be impossible, but had taken all of about 3.5 minutes for Zak. That the mayor was dressed in pajamas depicting a 200-year-old superhero from ancient comic books was an unexpected yet highly entertaining bonus. But when Zak Blue sky posted that picture for all of Devadair City to see, he had become target number one for those in authority. That began a series of confrontations, many of which were, in fact, his fault, but quite a few of which who were not. 2 weeks shy of his 17th birthday, and knowing that he was now officially in a world of trouble, Zak knew that the welcome mat for him here on Earth was rolled up and tucked away forever. I had to get out, D. I can't spend my life mourning for the past, and I certainly can't allow myself to be squished into a boring, boxy mold. These authority types are as much fun as unflavored oatmeal. Anyway, it isn't like we have much holding us here. Oit shadatial kefa talfeler. Thank you for that impromptu sermon, Pope Pumpernickel. Yes, I know I shouldn't have stolen that transmuter. I figured that out when I got arrested yet again, thus necessitating my escape. But if I hadn't stolen the transmuter, I wouldn't have been able to perfect my portable slide drive. Oit hypera lova et gitelesopa. I better hope it's perfected? What does hope have to do with anything? Facts are facts. I'm a human, you're a Tark, water is wet, and my inventions always work. He hoped. Because if it didn't, 3 months in local confinement would seem like a walk in the park. He knew that his escape alone was good for 2 years, yet he'd been willing to risk that rather than waste 3 months in a lockup. And once he took that spaceship, he could count on 20 years if he was ever caught. He could not afford a single mistake. Chapter 2. As Darragon and Zak peered around the corner at the longed-for ship surrounded by all of the guards, they were both in their minds sizing up the task at hand. 2 of them. 1 ship. At least 30 guards. The Balindrome hangar itself was massive, the largest structure on Earth. 20 miles long, 40 miles wide, 5 miles high. The wall and ceiling and floors on every level were sheets of pure energy. There were more than 5,000 ships inside its confines. The energy walls protected everything and everyone inside from such mundane things as rain, snow, wind, and also from more hostile things like Paragonian cannons raining destruction down from the sky. After the attack of 2123 devastated half of the space vessels on Earth, steps have been taken to assure that such a thing would never be possible again. Lina gi oya schema? Well, first we need some kind of a distraction. Then we need to get into that ship as quickly as possible and get it out of one of the ports without getting killed. From there we fly, really fast, and hope for the best. Darragon looked at Zak with bewilderment. Hefagi et? Yes, that's it. Do you have a better idea? The Tark shook his head at that and spent the next half-minute emitting a series of vibrations and whistles that Zak could not understand, but was quite sure meant that Darragon was either very upset or laughing at him. Truthfully, he couldn't blame him. Genius or no, there was really not much in the way of good odds that they could ever pull this off. Working from the outer edge of their problem, even if they got a ship out into space, they would be followed by enforcement cruisers that could surely catch them. That particular problem Zak was certain he could overcome. His slide drive could be installed in 3 minutes tops and should give any decent ship a good chance at outrunning any pursuit. If they got a really good ship, it would outrun pursuit by a long way. Working inward, though, there was also the problem of the exo-ring around the planet. Generated by power harnessed from the sun, it would keep any ship from making it to orbit unless it had electronic clearance from the Inner Space Authority below. That part could be beaten if the ship could be past the exo-ring in less than 47 seconds. A good pilot could not do it. A great pilot could. Zak knew he was a great pilot. Further in still was the Balindrome itself. Every ship was surrounded by at least 30 guards, each one with neural disruptor guns. That presented a fate worse than death. If he were shot with one of those, he would lay on the ground in no pain at all, fully awake yet unable to move a muscle. The guards would then calmly call for the authorities from PET. They would equally calmly mosey on over and pick him up like a sack of trash, haul him to prison, drop him in a deep, dark cell, and then and only then would he be undisrupted. He would then spend a very, very long time regretting his actions. We have to get that ship, D. We have to. The sniffer bots are probably already closing in on us, and this old-fashioned cover scent won't hold out forever. 1 ship. Couldn't they at least have left 1 ship unguarded? Would that have been too much to ask? There are those moments when an idea hits you. An idea so outlandish and at the same time so perfect that just takes your breath away. From the wild-eyed look that came across Zak's face and the way he gasped, Dargon knew this was one of those times. He knew it, and he also knew that it always meant trouble. There is one ship like that, D. There's one ship that won't be guarded. Onna! Onna! Sarito, onnat! Yes, absolutely yes, Zak countered. Da Falcona Celesto Canya Bayaro. It can be flown, D. It's been done before. The Falcon Wing was both a prototype and an anachronism. In the earliest days of flight, mankind had used hand-eye coordination rather than computers and electronics. Even on up into the 21st century, pilots had used hand controls in conjunction with electronics to fly. A good pilot was able to react even quicker than a computer was and was able to handle crafts going 2,000 and 3,000 miles per hour. But with the advent of orbital spacecraft and then deep space travel crafts, everything had changed. After multiple deaths of pilots who could never react quick enough to danger at very near the speed of light, the thought interface was born. In short, pilots no longer used any type of hand controls to pilot a craft. Every pilot was mentally synced with his ship, and the thought interface allowed him to react on the deepest of mental levels with the heart of the craft itself. In essence, the pilot became a part of the ship and vice versa. This revolutionary technology had almost completely done away with any form of old-fashioned piloting of inner atmosphere or outer space ships. When I say almost completely, what I really mean is all but one man and all but one ship. I still have his poster on my wall back home, or back at what used to be home. Davian Desaad was an old-fashioned daredevil and a hero to Zak and other kids like him. Early on, he'd rebelled against the notion of the thought interface, arguing that it had atrophied any real skills and abilities on the part of pilots. Normally, a person like that would have been summarily arrested for nonconformity. But since his father was high up in government, he'd often been given a pass on his indiscretions. And then came Falcon Wing. Davian Desaad had somehow managed to pull off the unthinkable. Not only did he secretly build the fastest spacecraft of its day, but he did so without any thought interface. The hand controls were still there. Yes, the computer could certainly plot on a course and then pilot itself when at warp speeds or higher just for convenience, but the pilot could at any time take the controls himself without being overridden. Such a thing was unthinkable and regarded as completely impossible to handle, but Davian Desaad did it. He'd launched it, beat the closing exo-shield, and jumped to hyperspace. He should have come back a hero, but instead he never made it back alive. Davian Gitana, Zak. Yes, I know he's dead. It was a fool's errand for even a pilot as great as him to try and navigate the Leonid expulsion. The Quaver rays had pierced the ship, not leaving so much as a trace of damage to it. Davian, though, flesh and blood and neural synapses, was not so fortunate. It would have been 1,000,000 to 1 odds of dodging each and every one at that speed until he could make it through safely, and it only took one to kill him. The ship had drifted for days before being picked up by a salvage cruiser and brought back to Earth. Davian was given a respectable burial with plenty of pomp and circumstance, but he also became a lesson in every child's education tablet. His life had encouraged individuality and risk-taking, but in his death, he became a monument to conformity. Every child was taught to fear doing things on his own. To do things on one's own brought danger and death. It was far better to trust the authorities and to stay in line. That lesson was taught so well, so graphically, so let's show Davian's dead body to each child at least 1,000 times, that the Falcon Wing became more feared than if it had been Dante's Inferno, which is why it was sitting right there, 5 levels up, all by itself, unguarded. It's chapter 1 and 2 of Zak Blue and the Great Space Chase, Falcon Wing. We'll see you next time, hopefully tomorrow night.